Vehicle's critical functions. T-minus 17 seconds.
The Space Shuttle. 30 years of success, failure, and most of all, science. From Columbia to Atlantis, the STS, or Space Transportation System, has helped us venture into space throughout the end of the 20th century. Whether it was building a space station or constructing a telescope to see past the heavens, the Space Shuttle launched us further into the final frontier.
Space station paving the way for future missions beyond.
The idea for the Space Shuttle dates back to the 30s to a man named Eugene Sanger and his mathematician wife Irene. The designs for an oval body attached with wings heavily influenced the original designers of the reusable spaceships at NASA in the 50s. Some designs were practical, and some were just plain crazy. Money was tight around NASA, so they stuck with the capsules they'd been using in Gemini and Apollo. Testing pushed into the 70s. To make Sanger's dream a reality, we needed the technology. Just getting to space was a problem. How were we going to break through the atmosphere? Good thing we had been doing that with the capsule programs. The boosters were adapted to fit, and we added a massive fuel tank. We now had the ability to get to space, but what about the heat? NASA had to develop an exterior that could withstand the intense heat of re-entry in the super cold of space. Their answer was ceramic fibers that are made by superheating materials like silica until they were molten and shaping them into tiles. Their crazy adaptation of fabric could withstand 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for over 4 minutes. Using tons of technology we already had at our dispense, like wings from an X-12 rocket plane and triple pane optical quality windows, we were ready to build. The engineers at NASA worked hard at putting everything together and entered the 80s with a final design. They called it Columbia, named after the first ship to sail around the world. NASA used it for a total of 23 missions, including the first 5 launches of the Space Shuttle program. On its 23rd mission, during re-entry over Texas in 2003, it was lost due to a faulty gasket that cracked due to intense heat. The next shuttle to be launched was called Challenger, named after the British HMS Challenger that sailed the Atlantic in 1870. After years of testing, its first launch was on April 4th, 1983. The mission was a success and marked the official start of the shuttle era. 9 more missions followed, equally successful, proving that a reusable shuttle was more than possible. It was happening. But it was not all fun and games for Challenger. On January 28, 1986, 76 seconds after liftoff, Challenger's booster failed, resulting in a massive explosion. 7 crew members died in this fatal accident.
We've grown used to wonders in this century. It's hard to dazzle us. We've grown used to the idea of space, and perhaps we forget that we've only just begun. We're still pioneers. They, the members of the Challenger crew, were pioneers. The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
The nation was shell-shocked after the mishap. Some thought the shuttle program was over, but NASA stood back up, brushed its shoulders off, and kept launching its 4 other shuttles: Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour. The shuttle program had 135 total missions that spanned 30 years. Launching one of these behemoths is no easy process. The shuttle has to be moved out of the vehicle assembly line, where it is put together. The crawler rolls it all the way to the launch pad, where it is locked to a 347-foot high tower. The astronauts walk aboard the ship to sit there for about 3 hours. After everything is set, the final countdown begins.
We have main engine start. 2, 1. Booster ignition.
The shuttle launches and lifts off from the pad with 7 million pounds of thrust. While exiting the atmosphere, the space shuttle drains all the fuel in its external fuel tank. The rocket boosters fall into the ocean, where they are retrieved by boats. The fuel tank burns up in the atmosphere after it is detached. This process takes only about 8 minutes. When in space, the crew does whatever the mission calls for. After everything is done, they pack up and get ready for descent. This is the most important part: landing it. After all, that is the entire point of the shuttle, to make it reusable, which means a safe and sound landing. Astronauts fly the shuttle like an unpowered glider through the atmosphere. It is then landed on a massive runway and towed back to the vehicle assembly building, where the whole process starts over again.
We're going to test it out first.
With a top speed of 17,500 miles per hour, this bad boy is no stroll in the park. But it could use a stroll in the park. The mammoth space shuttle weighs more than 178,000 pounds. That's 13 grown African elephants. With a length of 122 feet, it could land on top of 3 buses. It's carried 777 astronauts into space. But don't think they're all that lucky. 18 died because of shuttle failure. 513.7 million miles have been flown by all of the space shuttles. That's enough to get to Jupiter. The shuttles now reside in LA, New York, the Kennedy Space Center, and our nation's capital. Even though the Space Shuttle program is over, we will never forget what Columbia, Challenger, Discovery, Atlantis, and Endeavour taught us.
Now sit back, relax, and watch one last launch.
12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Start. 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of the Space Shuttle Discovery, returning to the